All right, so let's kick it off. Welcome everybody to webinar number 3 of 8 of our Optimal Ad Sales webinar series. This particular webinar has been through a couple different name changes. We called it Good Sales Habits. Previously, it was known as Methodology. It's all about the habits or the general process that you should get, or the habits that you should really get into to be efficient in your sales process. Joining us today is, as always, Annette Batson of Annette. So Annette is the ad sales rep for Annette and always has some really good commentary. And yep, and
I said hello.
yep, hey Annette, and thank you for being with us. And something that we didn't do it so much in the first webinar, but for the second webinar. We kind of opened it up, made it a little more conversational. So if you do have questions as we move through these slides, we periodically take a look over and see if any questions do come up and address those as they get written. So you can use that webinar chat feature, and then they'll just show up in that chat area. There's also like a Q&A feature in Zoom, but I don't think we've ever been able to use that effectively. So just type it in the chat. We'll keep an eye on it as we move through. So. And Annette, just a quick check. You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we say this at the beginning of every webinar. If you don't know about Broadstreet is an ad manager. The company itself was created in 2012. We have a commitment to our customers' prosperity. That's why we do these webinars. We want our customers, who are largely niche publishers, either at the local, city and regional, or industry magazine, in those spaces, we want to be the best possible platform for them, for monetizing their publication, for treating their advertisers well, also making life generally easy for them. That said, this isn't about being a product pitch for Broadstreet. So sometimes you get on a webinar, it's kind of a marketing thing. They're trying to tell you about their product. That's not what this is about. This is all about illuminating that sales process for our customers who either might need a refresher, might be completely new to ad sales, or might have a team that they think this could be useful for. And this is the revised 2020 version of an 8-part series that we ran in 2019. So we updated the content quite a bit, and you'll see that as we move through. So these are the 12 steps of the ad sales process, or really the 12 different phases that we've spoken about. We've already discussed the competition. We've talked about packaging and pricing on the last webinar a couple of weeks ago. Today's all about methodology, so those good sales habits. Next week, we're going to be talking about client types, getting the meeting, and then the actual meeting. So once we actually get a meeting, what are we going to do at that meeting? And then what do we do when we follow up? Putting together a really nice proposal. We try to make everything very actionable. So instead of like kind of high level advice, we try to give you concrete advice that you can take and work into your process. Because I personally always find that to be the most helpful, when someone kind of gives me concrete steps that I can follow, and I might deviate, I might kind of do my own thing sometimes, but seeing how somebody else does it, as opposed to some kind of like high level webinar series. But then rewards, upsells, closing, collecting, check-ins, renewals, all the important parts to getting business and then repeating that business. So all Broadstreet customers, or at least 99% of them, rely on repeat business. So we get a customer on board, we want to keep them on board. And I was reading a book recently, and they said there are no spare customers, right? So we can't really afford to, once we get some on board, we can't really afford to lose them. We want to keep them on board, keep them happy. So we'll talk about that at the end of this series. So the next webinar, if you're interested in the next one, primarily about getting the meeting, it's actually one of my favorite webinars, because you're reaching out to somebody by email. Some people think this is the most tedious part of sales. What are some sales scripts that we can use to get somebody to spend some time with us so we can learn about their business and maybe give them a pitch on advertising? So broadstreetads.com/webinars. You can sign up for all of the upcoming webinars. We didn't do that last year. We are doing it this year. So just visit that page and sign up for the future webinars before they fill up. And then say this every webinar, 10 advantages. If you aren't aware of your advantages as a niche publisher, definitely download 10 advantages. It's a free PDF, broadstreetads.com/10-advantages. Again, not a marketing document. Try to make it very concrete, very insightful, something that you can put to good use. So today is all about how do I efficiently manage the process of getting and retaining advertising business. So we'll do a little bit of a review in a second, but in the last webinar, we kind of set a year-end revenue goal, right? And this could be for a sales team that's already existed, or this could be your first year in business as a publisher. We set this year-end revenue goal, but now we have to efficiently manage that process of getting that advertising business. When we haven't done it before, it's kind of foggy, right? We can't really see how we know where we want to get to, but we don't know how we're going to get there yet. So the last the last webinar was kind of about taking that number, breaking it down into more manageable pieces, and making those intermediate steps a little less foggy. So how do I efficiently manage the process of getting and retaining advertising business? Or put another way, how do I take this big list of prospects and turn it into enough paying customers to run my business? Because ultimately, we need to get a certain number of people on board, or else, this isn't working out for us. We need to hit our sales goals. So an overview of today, finding the time. Right now, if you're a veteran salesperson, or if you're a full-time salesperson, this is probably your full-time thing. But if you're new to sales, or you're doing a lot of our smaller publishers, people on the staff might be wearing a lot of hats. You're the creative director and you do things with the website, but you're also responsible for selling ad space. There's different people have a lot of different roles at smaller companies. So all about finding that time. Next is building a prospect list. All right, we got to get everybody on that list, put them in a sales pipeline, and then we'll talk about CRMs. So we use basically what we call the minimally viable CRM, our favorite. We'll show how that works, but if you're unaware, CRM is software for managing this sales process, making you very efficient in reaching out to people and kind of turning that big list into paying customers. And then, of course, we'll recap everything as we move on. Again, as questions come up, give us a shout in that chat area. So let's review. What was our goal last time? We said for, just to take a big round number, about 100K, 120K might be our first year revenue goal. If you are a more established publisher and you have bigger sites, you can add a 0 to that if you'd like to. We picked 100K year end, or generally about 10K a month, high level revenue goal. And what we did is we broke that into packages. So we had 3 packages. We have our lowest level package of 250. We have our mid-range package of 500. And then we have our high-end package of 1,000. So we didn't, at the end of the webinar, we kind of filled these packages up with different things like sponsored content or display advertising or whatever it is that you might be offering. But we generally have 3 packages and they're priced differently. And we're able to take that 10K a month revenue goal and break it down into little manageable bite-sized chunks. So what this essentially says to us is, okay, I need to get 20 customers on board, right? That's what this chart is saying. So if we have a 10K a month high level plan, that says, okay, at the end of this year, if I'm going to do that and I'm using packages of these sizes, I'm going to have to get about 20 people, 20 paying advertisers on board. Now, I'm a fan of taking a big goal and breaking it down into smaller chunks. So let's actually take it a step further. We did this last time for the first time around. We broke it down into a quarter. Now, could you sell this in 90 days? 2 $250 packages, 2 $500 packages, and a $1,000 package. Now, that's 5 advertisers. In 90 days, can we get 5 advertisers on board? Right. Well, when you break it down this far, it doesn't actually seem so unmanageable. It seems like something you could maybe even pull off in a month. Right now, is it going to happen that quickly? Probably not, especially if you're new to this. But as you get better over time, you're going to get better and better. And all of a sudden, 5 isn't going to seem like such a big deal. In fact, 10 might not even seem like such a big deal. So as you get better and more efficient at this ad sales process, hitting those goals is going to become easier and easier. But
can I add something?
Absolutely.
So it just occurred to me when you said that it may not happen in a month, but I'll tell you a way to make it happen in a month is to go after the right target of potential advertisers. And in order to get to make a quick sale, it's advantageous to find like time-sensitive events or something going on which the advertiser needs to get out ASAP. Could be, ticket sales, beginning of a art exhibit. It could be, enrollment for some kind of a classes, and they're doing a special over a short period of time right now. And so those are the kind of people you can sell short and sweet ads to, but at least it gets revenue in for that first month.
Right, exactly. And that's a great point. So we later in the webinar series, we talk about really understanding what your customer needs. So not just trying to sell them an ad or a package, like kind of understanding what it is they're trying to achieve. And that's a great way of almost like proactively doing that. You look at the university or the local school or the place that's having the grand opening, you kind of anticipate those potential needs they have and hit those first. So that's a great point.
And another thing, when I have low revenue months and I'm going, what am I going to do to get money in this month? I put together a sale package, and I call it whatever I want. I call it, fall summer package, banner, horizontal banner special package. And I go to my list of contacts and I send it out. I said, okay, this month only 50% off, or 25% off, or whatever you want to make it. Buy one, get one. And then you can get money in that month as well.
Right. So on that goal, all right, I talk so much about breaking big tasks into smaller tasks, but that goal, which is pretty big, I like to say this, it doesn't require a genius, right? Now you can be a genius and still do it, obviously, but it just requires, if there's one quality that you need to make this happen, it's persistence, just routine persistence. That means making the time, working through this general process that we're going to outline today, but it's about being persistent and also consistent, right? So we're probably not everyone's going to advertise with us right away. We got to keep working through that list, be consistent, keep every so often hitting up or working through the sales process. But we'll talk about what those steps are. This simple cycle that repeats when you make time to focus on ad sales. So that first step in this cycle is essentially making time. Now, especially for our customers who are either a one-person show or a hyperlocal, or even just a small team, sometimes we know that we have ads, like we know it's such a critical part of the business. We don't have a business if we're not out trying to sell to some degree, but we're not making time for it, right? And there's a reason this is the case. And there's actually, and I didn't mention this the last time around because I hadn't read it yet, but there's a great book. It's called The E-Myth, right? By a guy named Michael Gerber. And it talks about how when you are really good at a certain thing and you try to turn that into a business, one of the problems is that you really like doing that thing. So if you're a great baker and you want to open a bakery, well, it turns out that you really like baking and it's not the business part of it that you really like to do. So you have to make time to learn that side of the business. And with journalists, this is the same situation where a lot of us love to cover our towns. We love to shine a light in dark places, as they say. And this is what gets us excited. We're news junkies, but there is a business side to running a news publication. It's all about making time to get out and sell ads. Now, as a more robust publisher is going to have a sales team, and even veteran sales people, the time management piece can kind of get away from them sometimes. It's about scheduling time of the day. Okay, this is when I'm going to reach out to people. The first 2 hours of the day, I'm going to reach out to people. The next 2 hours, I'm going to respond to anybody who got back to me. I'm going to then follow up with anybody that I need to follow up with. It's all about making time, carving out the time on our calendar. So when there's something that you don't want to do, if it is something that you feel like it's, you really don't want to get to it, make that one of the first things that you do in the day, right? Close out your email, close out Slack or whatever else is kind of popping up, close out your news feeds, make time for sales. So this is probably one of the more famous. So I just mentioned blocking out the first 2 or 3 hours of the day, maybe 3 days a week. So you say, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, these are the days I'm going to sell, or maybe just Tuesday, Wednesday, right? The first, the morning hours. I really love morning hours because it's quiet and people, aren't flooding my inbox or anything like that. I can get a lot of things done. You block out those hours of the day, or you can do, and this has been pretty successful for some of our customers who watched our last webinar, Money Monday. And this is BaristaNet's idea, or the one that Debbie Gallant had shared at a Montclair conference a few years ago. BaristaNet's team would basically focus on the money aspect of their business every Monday, and they called it Money Monday, and say, okay, who are people that we want to get on board? Who are people that owe us money? What are, all of the things that they could do to boost the revenue? That was what they called it, Money Monday. And you do not want to deviate from that. You want to be consistent. So we're persistent, the fact that we keep doing it, and consistent as well. So block out all distractions. And I shared a little bit about my experience because it's previously, early in the days of Broadstreet, 2012, 2013, my background was in software development. I liked building the software, and eventually became clear that if there was a partner in the company who was going to focus on the sales aspect, it probably had to be me. So I provide my my own experience. If you go to broadstreetads.com/make-time, you'll kind of get that that side of it. So you can see on the right, entrepreneurial journalists make time for ad sales, and talks about how important it is to do the things that you may not want to do, but ultimately you might end up really liking, because if you're the type of person who likes developing new skills, new things that you can do, you'll have a lot of fun with it. So the first thing that we do when we make time, now that we have time, you say to yourself, okay, next Monday or on Friday, I'm going to make time. I'm going to carve out this time, put it on my calendar. I'm not going to skip it. I'm going to build a prospect list. Everybody that I think could be a customer, we want to get as many people in this list as possible. So if you have to get 20 people on board, let's try and get at least 10 to 20 times the prospects that you need to hit your goal. Now, I know a lot of us, especially if we're in a small town, we might not have 10 to 20 prospects. So we basically want to max that out. Who are all the companies that we could potentially work with? So if we have to get 20 people on board, that means 200 advertisers. If we can get 200 advertisers on that list, that's going to put us in the best position. Even better if you can hit that, that 20x range. Although for an industry magazine, that might not be as hard, but for a smaller news publication, that might be hard. For a city or a regional magazine, that might not actually be so crazy to get 400 prospects in a list. And then, of course, you want to mix between different sizes and types. It's great to have large publishers in there. It's good to have small publishers in there. But one thing that you don't want to do is don't talk yourself out of anybody, especially if you're new to sales, right? You say, okay, I would love to have them on board, but I'm not reaching out to them because I'm frankly kind of terrified to even try and talk to them, right? I think most of us, when we're getting into sales, we kind of talk ourselves out of things. Don't do that, right? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have wins. You're going to have losses. Put everybody in that list and don't talk yourself out of it, anybody. Next is to get their contact information. So this might mean working through everybody in that list and going and finding, hey, what's their website? What is the decision maker's phone number? What's their email address? What's their name? All right. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this. And something that we've done in the past at Broadstreet is that we've hired a freelancer, somebody who is good at this kind of like internet research. We go to like upwork.com, find a freelancer. You can maybe find someone on Fiverr or maybe someone locally, but there are a lot of people on Upwork who will do this. And you can give them a spreadsheet of a few hundred rows and say, okay, this is the name of the business. I need you to find this information, put it into columns, and they're very, very good at this. And it might not end up costing you so much money. I think we've paid, a couple $100 to have a big lead list filled out. So this can be time consuming if you do it. And especially if you're launching or you're the business owner, you probably do have other things to do that are more important than this. And this is kind of like one of those next steps in becoming a business owner, is delegating that to someone else. Take this very time consuming task that really doesn't require any expertise from us and delegate that to someone else. So if you can delegate it, hire someone to do it, you should do it. And if you haven't hired anybody through Upwork before to do those smaller tasks, that in itself can be a little bit of a learning experience. So we get this big prospect list together, and then we build a pipeline. right? So a pipeline are the stages that the people in our list are going to move through, right? So now we're really kind of conceptualizing this sales process.